I'm just gonna get started because no one cares about the stuff I'm gonna say anyways, and then they can trickle in. Thank you for everyone who's already here. Abhishek, Navin, and Paul. Cool to see you guys. So this meeting is recorded right now. Hopefully you understand why. If we're already connected on LinkedIn, you've probably seen some of the ways that I can recycle this footage later, and it will be uploaded to YouTube. So if you don't have that channel already that you're subscribed to, then I'll drop that in the chat if I can. Where the hell? I am not a fan of Windows 11.
Yeah, me
Hold
either.
on. Okay, so here is the YouTube channel where this will be posted later. And then also we'll be able to take like each of Sandeep and Kyle's talks and then make that a separate like promo for them that they can have. That's just their own. And then of course, at any time you guys can drop your LinkedIn in the chat. Scroll down more. I didn't do mine last time. I realized that after the fact, but whatever, find me on LinkedIn if we're not already connected. So yeah, like I said, we'll do Kyle first and we'll do Sandeep second. We'll do about 15 minutes for each person and then a couple of minutes of Q&A. And then for anyone else who shows up who is an IoT expert, we'll do intros for them. If it keeps just being 6 people, then we can do around the room thing again. But I was kind of keeping the focus to IoT this time. And then we can do breakout sessions because I think I can figure it out this time. Hello, Malcolm. Good to see you. Let's see. So I wanted to mention that we have a new member on Odd Engineer, Tristan Cannan. He was at the last meetup and he's an industrial designer. He does have a booking calendar, so you can schedule a paid appointment with him or you can message him for a longer contract. He also has a free like preliminary consultation thing if you want to do a longer contract, but you just want to meet him first in a video chat. So we did a survey last time. We only had like 8 or 9 results, but they were surprising results because one of them said that they wish that there was a way for startups to be able to work with experts in hardware engineering without having to engage in a full contract. I'm like, dude, have you gone to the website yet? That's kind of what we built the whole pilot off of. And we're kind of moving away from making everyone have one of those booking calendars. But if it wasn't clear before, that is the whole point of that to begin with. It was so that people could, engage with us with an hourly consultation because, otherwise we have to do a whole lot of screwing around to set up a time and go back and forth with an NDA and then hunt you down to get paid. So a lot of companies will have a minimum threshold that you can't meet, but this makes us able to do those little things. So if I did a bad job explaining it, there's a whole website where you can find consultants. That's kind of what this meetup is for. Go to oddengineer.com. We had on the survey, there was one, I'm going to drop the survey in the chat too, because we can still use this going forward if you want to invite other people to put their response. But for the Europe meetup, we only had a couple people sign up for that. So that's not enough to make it happen. But like I said, if there are people who want that or want one of the other possibilities that are on there, just spread it around. And then once we get like critical mass, we can make it happen. And then, so the next one is going to be April 11th if we hold it. I'm kind of thinking we might need to cancel because, like I said, the last one, like I can't do 100% of the promotions. The first one was kind of a fluke because everyone's like, oh, this is a weird new thing, but it's not going to be a weird new thing if I invite all my network every 2 weeks. So if you want to go to the medical and space devices that involve optics, specifically spectrometers, both of these guys are experts in spectrometers, spread that around, sign up for it. Otherwise, we might have to cancel it. And that's with Pablo Sabron and Randall Chinnock, who are like amazing at what they do. I might do a marketing crash course because that was kind of the second thing that people ask for after, let's see, the first thing was what we're doing now. People are like, I need to understand different silos of engineering. And the second thing was, I don't know how to run a business. So I was like, you guys need marketing crash course. I might do that. I might. Or I might do like a live stream on LinkedIn coming up because I just think you need it. And then let's see. And there were also people who said that they wanted to speak, and you know, that's really great. Promotions. This is one of the best ways that you can promote yourself is by sharing value with other people and being recognized as an expert. So that's why I'm doing this for the paid members. And I hate to be that guy, but this costs a lot of money for me to do and a lot of effort. So if you're interested in that, you can join as a paid member and let me know that you want to speak, or you can sponsor an event. And then, so at the last meeting, I gave away some stuff and only a couple people got it. And I felt sad that I couldn't give more stuff to more people. Why won't it let me scroll down and get the whole link? Okay, so everybody can use this to get a coffee from Starbucks for the next 2 days. So if you go to that image, it'll be a barcode and it's got some money on it, and have a drink on me if you're around a Starbucks. I think most of us are, maybe not all of us. And that should be enough for all of us to have a pretty nice fancy drink, because there's only 6 of us here or whatever. How many people we got?
18.
Oh shit, I didn't even see so many people showed up. That's cool. All right, well, there's still enough in it. Okay, good. Yeah, that should still be enough for everybody to get something. And if you try to get a drink today and there's not enough money, I'll reload it tonight and then you can get it tomorrow. Cool. So actually, let me, if there's actually people here, let me, where the hell was that? Here's my LinkedIn.
Hey, Erin, just a quick note. I recognize some of the people who have joined who are in my network. I don't know if everyone's familiar with Odd Engineer, so I think you definitely should take advantage of this moment to just kind of talk about a few minutes of really what some of us know exactly what it is, but some people might not. So I think it's really worth it for you to share what you're doing and what Odd Engineer is.
Oh, thank you so much, Sandeep. Yeah, I didn't even realize that more people had showed up because I can't see it in my view. Yeah, so originally Odd Engineer last year, we started it as a way to have a bunch of freelancers leverage each other's networks so that we can reach more clients, because, you know, being able to reach in other people's networks in that way is way more effective than thousands of dollars of paid advertising. And it doesn't cost as much. And also, it's really hard to find people who are niche experts in hardware engineering. So there's a huge problem on the client side to find all these people. And the platforms that exist besides Odd Engineer, they kind of screw over the freelancer because they're forcing you to kind of race to the bottom dollar for what you will offer instead of providing higher quality. And I wanted to provide a platform that flipped that on its head so that we're recognized by our niche expertise instead of how low could we possibly do this for? How many corners can we cut? How many ways might we possibly screw this up? But it's okay because it's really cheap, you know? And the thing is, if you look at how we refer people to each other, we do it by our niche expertise. And Sandeep and Kyle are both IoT experts, right? Well, I think everyone in this room would agree to that, but they have different expertise and there's a lot of overlap, but some of the ideal clients for Kyle will be different than the ideal clients for Sandeep. So even though they're competitors, they're kind of not. And it's good to have these other people who are in your same specialty in your network, so you can work together and send work to each other when you have too much or too little. And also other people in other specialties who are going to be interfacing with other startups and hardware development teams that might need an IoT expert, or might need an optical engineer, or might need something that's really hard to find. It happens all the time, right? Like, how many of us get asked on the daily, do you know an X? Do you know someone who's an expert in injection molding? Do you know someone who can do an industrial design for electronics development? And I'm still getting those. Just go to the website. You can send anyone a message on there. And then some of us also have a booking calendar, so you can immediately book appointments. If you're not ready for a full contract, then you can do paid consultations over the video for some of us. So, and you can search by niche specialty instead of electrical engineer, $5 an hour. And also there's portfolios, so you can see people's like past projects, and it's really catered to pulling out the things people actually care about when they're trying to find a niche specialist. So that's why we're doing these meetings, as a way to help us connect even more with each other. The platform is great. The platform is a great place to find that niche talent, but we still need to talk to each other. We still need to actually interact. And that's what this meeting is hopefully going to do. So, and at the last meeting, a lot of people asked to learn more about what other silos are doing. You know, it's a common complaint in development leadership that, well, my mechanical engineers don't understand what my electrical engineers are trying to do, and they're just working in a silo. But a lot of us don't actually want to be doing that, but we don't have a way to learn. So luckily, Sandeep and Kyle have graciously agreed to give us a talk today. One sec. And kind of explain to those people who aren't IoT pros, what is wrong with me? I got it, okay. So they're gonna explain to these people who aren't IoT pros more about how they do what they do and how not to screw up interacting with them. And if you want more background on Kyle, by the way, his podcast episode, I just dropped a link to the podcast, the Odd Engineer podcast, in the comments. His podcast episode, the audio version, like got far more views than any of the other ones. It's a big deal on the audio podcast world. So check that out if you want to learn more about Kyle's background beyond these 15 minutes here. So I'm going to stop sharing, and Kyle, if you want to
Let me let's get this rolling. Yep. And I need to share screen there. And then if I start playing this, hopefully you're going to see slides. The last slide instead of the first slide, though, is not really what we want to start with.
Yeah, we got it.
Back to the start. There we go. All right. So yeah, hi. For those of you I haven't met, my name is Kyle. I am the principal engineer and owner of Spinnaker Design, which is a consulting firm specializing in IoT and embedded devices. So I figured I'd sort of give, since it's just like a quick 15-minute presentation, I would give a like 10,000 foot overview of like how to sort of build your hardware idea or build your hardware startup without losing your shorts and ending up with nothing. So yeah, that's what we're gonna go over. So there's kind of three main points that I like to talk about. And if you actually listen to the podcast conversation that I had with Erin, I go into especially the first one in a lot more detail. So I would encourage you to do that. But yeah, so the 3R is something I like to call designing for agility. And then once you're in that mindset, it's very important that you choose who you collaborate very carefully. And then as your project's going, the thing that I like to tell people is you always want to be focused on sort of what your end goal is and what the actual problem you're trying to solve. And you want to be pragmatic about everything else. And we'll go into why when we get there. So first up, yeah, designing for agility. Since you're all kind of in like a startup-y engineering kind of a meetup right now, I presume you're at least aware of sort of agile practices or, hardware or lean development, lean startup, kind of choose your corporate buzzwords there. But basically, lean is great if you're doing a startup. It's really important that you do customer development, talk to your customers, try to build MVPs, do all of that stuff. But it's also really important to keep in mind that lean practices, they came out of software. Eric Ries, the guy who wrote the first book, was at Second Life, which is a software company. A lot of the other guys have have written a lot of books in that space or spoken in that space, came from software companies. So taking some of those practices and applying them to hardware without kind of thinking about the ramifications of that can really destroy your project. And I can go into examples shortly, but it's really important to keep in mind that hardware companies, they're not software companies, right? They have real fixed costs. You have lead times, you have margins, which are incredibly important. Most software companies do not really think about like per user margin. Like your per user cost on software products is typically almost zero. Most of your costs come elsewhere. And you have inventory, which means that, if you make 5,000 of something, and then as you're talking to your customers, you realize that they actually want feature X that isn't in there, well, you have to write off 5,000 units of inventory, which depending on your thing could be thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars, right? So that can kill you. And it's also really easy if you're doing lean in hardware to come up with impossible things. It's sort of the Kickstarter problem, It's a smartwatch with an embedded 4K projector and it cures diabetes. And then you go on Kickstarter and you're like, and it'll cost $50. And you raise a couple $100,000. And that is A, not enough to develop a thing. And B, it will never cost $50. So you see this a lot. Like you go to CES, you go to, especially early days Kickstarter, all those, there's just all this like vaporware hardware that floats around where, yeah, you've definitely found like problem market fit, but that's not a thing that physics will allow us to build. So it doesn't really matter. So the kind of solution to that is to really focus on when you're doing your early prototypes, when you're doing your customer development, you want to make sure your prototypes or even your first couple versions you want them to be as like big and chunky and overpowered as your market and your customers and your testers will allow. What this does is it means that as you're learning from them, as you're having those conversations with customers, as you're getting feedback from the market, maybe you're selling, maybe you have beta users, maybe you have demos, at this point you're asking for money and you're getting real feedback from the market. If you overspec a lot of things or you include things that maybe you're not using yet, you have the ability to just use software and maybe some other agile things to give that to them without having to re-engineer a V2, right? So some really good examples, probably the big one, overspeccing your battery in early versions is a great idea. It's very easy to talk to an industrial designer, your customers, come up with something that is beautiful and tiny and runs for about 30 minutes before it dies. Including wireless antennas, so you can add Bluetooth or functionality or Wi-Fi or Zigbee or whatever IoT thing you want to add. I'm a huge fan of using embedded Linux on early prototypes. This could be anything from like some larger things like a Raspberry Pi down to there's some embedded Linux modules that run, say, Android from Qualcomm you can use. There's one called the Omega 2, which is an all-in-one little thing. It's about yay big. They're great because on Linux, you can even use high-power programming languages like Python or to make a lot of progress very quickly and be very agile without getting bogged down in low-level embedded C hardware drivers for speculative features you may or may not need. And it's great to make it big, chunky, and probably ugly because then you can like use 3D printers and you don't have to worry about tooling costs. You don't have to worry about, design for manufacturing. you can kind of keep going. And then, so once you're kind of in that, it's really important that you choose your collaborators very carefully. And this I've seen a couple projects really get bogged down in this. Hardware is incredibly multidisciplinary. No matter how, it's very unlikely that you as an individual are going to be able to wear all of the hats needed to launch it, right? Even a very simple project, you're going to need someone who can do software, someone who can do hard electrical engineering, and someone who can do some form of mechanical engineering. It is possible that certain people can do more than one, but like unless you are like a true polymath, you're going to need some help. And many firms you talk to, especially in a lot of tech places, they're used to working with very large firms who maybe that we're talking like V10 of the product that they're doing. So they know exactly what the spec is and they want to work off that spec. And that is great. But when you deal with, new products, you want to be agile, you want to be lean, you have limited budgets, a lot of those firms aren't really accustomed to doing that. So what you really want to do is you want to look for, whether we're talking business partners, consultants, service providers, advisors, that are really comfortable with that agile way of thinking and that lean way of thinking, right? If the first thing that they do is they want to create a very detailed spec of what your project is, or a scope of work, and work off that, let's say for 6 months, I have yet to work with an early stage company where the initial scope of work we come up with survives more than like 3 weeks. Because as soon as they start going out and having their next set of customer interviews, or their next set of, maybe we have like a really rough prototype and they're showing it to people, things change. The market starts to inform you that, certain assumptions are wrong, and you want to be able to have that flexibility, right? Without immediately going back every time you want to make a change, you're going to go back into change request orders, rebudgeting, all this stuff. So you want to make sure you work with partners that are comfortable with that and that like to do that, rather than more your typical larger firm that maybe is more accustomed to working with someone like Microsoft, who Microsoft, by the time they're talking to a firm like that, has had business analysts fully spec out everything. They know exactly what they want, and they're looking at like a 3-year timeline to launch it, right? And then the third point is that you really want to, throughout the entire process, you want to be focused, but you also want to be pragmatic. So a good example, so some of the problems I've seen is, as I kind of alluded to, you will likely be speaking with customers throughout the process, right? Hardware products take a while to develop. There's lead times, all this. So while all that's happening, presumably you're going to continue to do your entrepreneurial thing and meet with customers, try to line up customer meetings, beta users, early adopters, try to understand pricing more, all of that stuff. And so as you're having those conversations, you're going to want to change things. So it's really, and changing things later in the process almost always means more money, right? And longer timelines. So what you really need to make sure that you do is you really want to front load that customer development in hardware even more than in software, because there are a lot of things you can't patch once you've shipped it. Anything, if mechanical or electrical, there's very hard to patch. So you really want to understand what the V in your minimum viable product is. What are the things that you must have, that people will use it and that people will buy it, and what aren't. And so you want to be very focused on delivering those things, the problem market fit, the solution to that problem. And other things you can have a vision, you can have a lot of, ideas, but you need to be fluid to make sure that you don't sacrifice those. So a really good example in some of the things I've worked on is I've worked on some medical wearables before. Obviously, like the key thing is that you can prove to the FDA that it does the medical thing that you're telling it to do. So gathering that data, running those clinical trials that you need to do, all of that stuff is like the most important thing, because otherwise you can't sell it. And I've seen a lot of projects get bogged down with aesthetics, with kind of other things, worried about, on the initial test mules, worrying about, is it small enough that, mounts nicely on your arm or on your wrist, as opposed to, like we can like we'll like tape the sensors on the place you want to potentially mount this thing, and we can put some extra hardware just elsewhere so people can wear it. You can actually get the data you need to prove to the FDA and to your investors that, you know, this is going to be a real product. So yeah, and as Erin mentioned, and as I mentioned, my company is Spinnaker Design. I'm Kyle, and you can contact me if you want to talk about any of these points at really any of the methods here. I think I kept it to the 15 minutes.
Good job. Can you, real quick, in case people aren't familiar with your kind of portfolio, you mentioned you work on medical devices. Can you just explain some of the industries and types of products that you've worked on?
Sure. So within IoT, I've done a lot of things, everything from consumer electronics through and like a lot of wearables, medical and sports wearables, as well as smart home and light commercial and light industrial kind of IoT deployments. I'd say my areas of expertise are more in the higher power type products rather than like extreme low power IoT type things where you're dealing with these incredibly specific microcontrollers that are very, very niche. I do a lot more with like embedded Linux with higher power controllers, because when you deal with IoT, right, to interact with the internet, there's a certain amount of power typically you need to run, unless you're going to get pretty extreme. And especially if you want to get to market quickly, it's kind of important that you work with kind of off the shelf things that are almost ready to be connected rather than trying to do a lot of it yourself.
And that's why you said to overspec the battery powder, which is a great tip.
It's surprisingly easy once you have a successful product to find ways to make it more energy efficient, and surprisingly hard to ensure that a very speculative design is going to hit a certain battery target.
Great stuff. Are there any questions? You can drop in the chat or just ask them directly. You guys can take yourself. There you go.
I had a question. You said that there's this over-speccing side, and then there's like really focusing on the minimum viable side. And, you know, that there's, you know, calling out slightly different things, it seems like. So can you clarify when you're narrowing down to a minimum and when you're over-speccing, like what's the distinction?
Sure. So yeah, so when we talk about minimum viable product, the minimum is sort of the minimum. We're talking about like the feature set from like a business, a market standpoint, right? So this is, it needs to be, you know, let's say it's let's just use like a smart light. You have a new smart light, because those are pretty understandable. So it needs to, you know, be a light. You need to be able to turn it on and off via the internet, probably with some app. And you probably also want to be able to turn it off with something on your wall. And depending on your customers, maybe you also want to turn it off with Alexa, okay? So that's like the minimum. We're talking about minimum feature set, not minimum specs, because I know it's kind of confusing. So when you think about a large computer, cheaper computers have lower specs. But when we talk about embedded hardware, cheaper things things that are cheaper to get out the door and to build are often bigger, because it gets very expensive to get very small. So having an over-spec'd battery very well would be the minimum from the business side, even though we're talking about like a maximum amount of power.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Awesome.
Yeah, that makes more sense.
So I think in the interest of time, we could just do that one question, but you can also probably send Kyle some direct messages there if you want. And if you're ready, Sandeep, love to hear your instruction, Professor.
Absolutely.
Let me stop sharing somehow.
Let me share my screen here. All right. That was great, Kyle. I think that's a lot of useful information. I mean, a lot of the stuff you said is very relevant to my clients as well. So thank you for sharing that message, and thanks, Erin, for having me here. So my presentation here that I'm going to show today is called Best Practices for Bluetooth Low Energy Product Design. This is a shortened version of a presentation I've given. It's usually more of a 30, 45 minute presentation. So I've kind of cut a lot of stuff here, but I will share where you can get a lot of this information in a document that's freely available. So let's get started. So a little bit about myself first. My name's Sandeep Kamath. I have a background in electrical engineering, but over the years, I've kind of drifted a little bit more into the firmware side, but I still very much focus on hardware and embedded software and kind of general system design. I've been working in the industry for about 17 years, mostly in the semiconductor industry, but also within just the broader electronics industry. And for the last 12 years of my career, I've been almost entirely focused on Bluetooth Low Energy technology. Thus, I'm a odd niche engineer with a very specific skill set here. So most recently, before I started my business, I was working for Texas Instruments for about 8 years. So I helped, while I was with TI, I helped them kind of grow their entire Bluetooth Low Energy product line, involved with all kinds of things when it comes to Bluetooth Low Energy. And then about years ago, I left TI and I started my business, SwaraLink Technologies. I'm based in San Diego. Since then, we've grown. I have another full-time employee here, and we have a worldwide network of subcontractors. So it's not just me. We have the capabilities of taking on a wide range of projects. The core values that we have at SwaraLink Technologies is one, we really believe in high quality engineering work. So, to kind of go back to what Erin was talking about, kind of the race to the bottom and finding, you can go on Upwork or one of these other sites and probably search Bluetooth Low Energy, and you can find someone who will work for $20 an hour and can do development for you. And honestly, that might work for you depending on what you're trying to build. If you're trying to build a very simple product that you just kind of need it hacked together, hey, you might be able to get away with that. We really like to focus on high quality engineering work where you're trying to build a product and you care about the quality. You want it to work very well. And we'll talk more about what I mean by quality a little bit later, but we can really help you with that. We also believe in clear communication and professional service. I want to make sure that my clients all understand what you're getting. I really believe in that. And lastly, and maybe the most important thing, is I really like to focus on end user experience and the big picture. In the end, I think what makes a great product, we can talk about technical specs. You can say the throughput is X megabits per second, or the average power consumption is whatever X microamps, but your end user doesn't care about that. They care about the user experience. They care about, is the battery dying in 2 days, or is the battery lasting 2 weeks before I have to charge it? When they open up their phone and they're trying to pair it, are they having difficulty? They go like, why is this not working? It's supposed to be in pairing mode. Those are the things that will really make or break your product and make a great product versus a bad product. I think it's really the user experience. And instead of just focusing on the technical specs, we really want to think about what is the end user's experience going to be. And that's probably the biggest advice that I would give to anyone building an IoT product of any kind. It doesn't even need to involve Bluetooth. If you're not thinking about what the user experience will be, what your desired user experience is, your product is not going to do very well. So even if you as a product developer don't understand a lot of the technical details behind what you're doing, you should really think about, what do you want your end user to experience? And then you can come to someone like myself or someone like Kyle, who are experts on our an IoT and our areas, and we can help turn that desired user experience into the technical requirements to make that happen. If you're just thinking about, this happens where I get clients where they say, I want to build a Bluetooth connected X. I say, that's cool, but just making something Bluetooth connected is not going to make a great product. Let's actually talk through, what do you want your user to experience? So that's really a core value of the work that I do and the work we do at SwaraLink Technologies. As a company, our technical focus is really on anything related to Bluetooth Low Energy. user experience, as I mentioned, but we can help reduce power consumption. We can help ensure your product is secure and private. We can help optimize throughput, optimize latency, robustness, interoperability. On the services side, we do everything from architecture and specification work to full-blown embedded software development. We even sometimes get involved in complete product design. We can help with hardware design, manufacturing, sort of end-to-end development, test and debugging, system optimization, project management, or just general consultation. If you are handling all of this stuff yourself, but just need someone to come in and kind of ask questions to because you're not sure about something related to Bluetooth, we can just come in and work on a very simple basis like that. Our clients are very diverse. We work with everything from sole entrepreneurs all the way up to large billion-dollar companies and everything in between. We don't cover any one vertical market. We work with any vertical market. Our really core expertise is in Bluetooth. So we work with consumer products, industrial products, automotive products, medical devices, and we do understand the differences between these types of markets. If you're building a consumer product, you can probably handle some, we can adjust the work to handle the types of failures that consumer products can handle. While in the case of building a medical device like an insulin pump, we understand that you can't really handle failures in an insulin pump. You need things to be very, very reliable. So we understand all these different markets and how to build software that fits the market. Our clients are primarily in North America, but all over the world, and we're really open to working with anyone. Now to get into kind of the meat of the presentation here, this is about best practices for Bluetooth Low Energy product development. So let's jump back here. So what are some common issues with Bluetooth Low Energy products? So I kind of hinted on some of this. Reliability is one of the most common things we see where, Erin, you're talking about your headset. I would think that almost every single one of us here has probably dealt with an annoyance with a Bluetooth product, myself included. And to this day, I deal with annoyances with Bluetooth products all the time. I happen to be borrowing a friend's camper van this week because I was dealing with some stuff and I was driving around and I wanted to play my music through the Bluetooth, and sure enough, I'm trying to pair and it's annoying, like the pairing isn't working well. And I'm a Bluetooth expert, so you'd think I should be able to figure out how to make it work. Well, the reality is a lot of Bluetooth products are not reliable, and the problem is not that Bluetooth itself is not reliable. The problem is that products are not made to be reliable. If you follow the Bluetooth specification and you follow best practices, your users will not have these kinds of problems. But just following the Bluetooth specification and qualifying your product is not enough. So it all falls back to user experience. Think about how you want your users to feel when they're using your product. It's possible to make a product that is always reliable. Power consumption is another issue we deal with a lot. If you make a product and you kind of just throw it together, you might not be getting all the benefits of Bluetooth Low Energy. Bluetooth Low Energy can be very low power, but that doesn't mean that you get that automatically just because you're using Bluetooth Low Energy. You need to actually do some things right if you want to actually get the power benefits of Bluetooth. And same thing with security. Bluetooth Low Energy is very secure, but that doesn't mean that every Bluetooth Low Energy product is very secure. You need to make sure that you're actually doing the best practices to get security. So why do products have these issues? Well, the specification is pretty complex. The Bluetooth core specification is the latest version 5.3 is, I believe, 3,000 plus pages, maybe even more. And that's just going to grow over time. That doesn't mean that you need to read all 3,000 pages of spec to make a good product, but the fact that the spec is 3,000 pages doesn't make it easy for us. When you're working with Bluetooth Low Energy stacks, the features might be limited. You're not necessarily going to get every single feature. Just because Bluetooth Low Energy supports all these different features doesn't mean that the stack or the product you're working with or the chipset you're working with includes all these features. And I used to work for a chip company, and I know there's some people on this call who are friends of mine who work for chip companies. And I will come out and say it, the chip companies have failed at making it easy for their customers. And it's not necessarily their fault, because they need to support every single one of their customers who needs to be able to use all these features, but you as a product developer might not need all these features. You might need a narrow subset of it, and you might need to, just because the chips support every single feature doesn't mean that you need all of that, but the fact that they support every single feature makes it difficult for you who just needs this narrow subset of features. So that's something that we can help you with. We can kind of help translate your needs into what the stack can do. There's also confusing marketing. So the Bluetooth Special Interest Group, the organization behind Bluetooth, is pretty guilty of this. So these are more shots fired right here. Bluetooth SIG is going to tell you Bluetooth Low Energy, Bluetooth 5.0 supports a long range mode and a high throughput mode and direction finding. And now they're supporting audio with Bluetooth 5.3. Here's the problem. Just because they support all of that doesn't mean that you get all of that for free by using Bluetooth 5.3. You can build a Bluetooth 5.3 product that doesn't support any of these features, and you can be using a Bluetooth 5.3 certified chipset that doesn't support all these features, and it's still certified to Bluetooth 5.3. That's confusing. In addition, Bluetooth 5.0 added long range mode, for instance. That doesn't mean that if you use a Bluetooth 5.0 chipset, you're getting long range mode. It doesn't mean that you get high throughput and long range. These are very specific features that you need to sort of opt in to use. If you start using long range mode, your throughput gets reduced. So you're not getting high throughput and long range mode at the same time. In addition, if you're talking to an iOS device, iOS doesn't even support long range mode. So, Bluetooth SIG is pushing all this stuff. Hey, Bluetooth 5 Plus gives you long range mode. Well, if you're building a product that you want to talk to an iOS device, which, let's face it, is most Bluetooth products, you're not getting long range mode at all. You can forget that long range mode even exists. That's confusing. That doesn't really help. That doesn't really make it easy for Bluetooth product developers to, to understand what they're getting. And then lastly, the SDKs that you get will have example applications, but those example applications don't necessarily give you all of the features that you want. So if you just, this is where, if you hire the Upwork engineer in another, who's somewhere else in the world, no offense to engineers in other parts of the world, there are many great engineers in other parts of the world, but the $5 an hour engineer is probably just taking the example from the SDK, changing the device name to, chipset example to your product, and maybe change a couple of things, saying, hey, I built you a Bluetooth product. That's not going to be a high quality product. It's not going to give you security. It's not going to give you privacy. You're not optimizing for power consumption, and you're not really getting what you need. So that makes it difficult for you. And that's kind of one of the reasons why there's a lot of bad Bluetooth products out there. You go onto Amazon and you buy some cheap Bluetooth products, and you're going to deal with one or more of these problems. And the reason is because of one or more of these reasons that are listed here. So that being said, it's possible to build a good Bluetooth Low Energy product, and we can help with that. So I'm probably gonna speed through a little bit of this just in the sake of time. Some of the examples of issues that I deal with are, I read that my BLE product should last for years on a single coin cell battery. How come it dies after just 2 weeks? The basic issue here is that bad products are using just default connection parameters and advertising parameters. Good products, there's actually optimal values you can set for these parameters. And even better products, you can dynamically update these connection parameters. So what are these parameters? This right here, this is what I call the cheat sheet, and I'll provide a link where you can download this. So this is basically how you can build a better Bluetooth product. And I'll tell you right now, I'm kind of giving my consulting advice away for free right now. And I'm actually happy to do that because there's some simple things you can do. And I'm publicly kind of sharing this information. If you need help actually implementing these parameters, this is where I can come in and help you with it. If you think you can do this yourself, all the more power to you. I'm happy to share this advice to you. So I'll share a link where you can get this. Another issue, I kind of hinted at this as well, isn't the throughput in BLE 2 megabits per second? I'm not getting anything close to that. Well, this is another failure of Bluetooth SIG. They're pushing that you support this high throughput mode and a 2 megabits per second data rate. Well, the reality is that is the physical layer data rate. At the application layer, your throughput is significantly less than that. And there's many reasons why it's less than that. You know, there's certain procedures that will impact your throughput. You know, the basic idea here is if you're sending data using the procedures called write requests or indications, you're sending your data at one point in time, then you have to wait a certain amount of time for a response. Then you wait and you send a small amount of data, and then you wait and you get a response. This is very inefficient if you're trying to optimize for throughput. There's a better way to do it, which is using procedures called write responses or notifications. And when you're doing that, you can send multiple packets on a single event. You don't need to wait for a response. Your next event, you send multiple more packets. You send multiple more packets. You're still not going to get 2 megabits per second throughput because that's a physical layer data rate. But if you were to follow this versus the previous graph that I showed, you will get, you know, approximately 8 times higher throughput than you would get if you're using kind of the basic write requests or read requests. So this is another practice which will help you if you're trying to optimize your throughput. Security. A common question I get is Bluetooth secure? The short answer here is yes, Bluetooth is very secure. The longer answer is Bluetooth is secure as long as you implement the security properly. And if you're just using the basic examples from an SDK, you're probably not going to have default security. Bluetooth has a feature called LE Secure Pairing. Bluetooth 4.0 had something which is now known as legacy pairing, which is not very secure because it was susceptible to a man-in-the-middle attack. So your basic idea here is you have Alice is sending data to Bob, the recipient, and you have Eve, the eavesdropper. Eve sits in the middle and is passively listening to all the data that's being sent over the air. And even if you're using security in Bluetooth Low Energy, it's not really secure because the eavesdropper can listen in on all the packets that are being sent and can basically decrypt the data. That's, in the end, it's basically no security. Bluetooth 4.2 added a feature called LE Secure Connections, which was later improved in Bluetooth 5.0. And this is based on them called elliptic curve Diffie-Hellman key exchange, or ECDH key exchange. And by using the LE Secure Connections feature, you're actually secure against Eve the eavesdropper in this case, using a better algorithm. So if you're not using this algorithm, you don't really have security in your product. So this is another best practice that we pretty much tell everyone for every product, always use LE Secure Connections. The reliability question. So my device won't pair with my phone, or the connection seems unreliable. This is another common one. For this, the best practice here is really to understand what iOS and Android want in order to make your product reliable. iOS actually, so Apple has a document called Accessory Design Guidelines. You can just Google that and you'll find it. And there's a section on Bluetooth Low Energy, and they give you all these details of do this, don't do this, do this, don't do this. And even the things in their don't do this list, they're legal from a Bluetooth specification perspective, but they don't necessarily play well with iOS. So if you do what Apple suggests that you do, you'll have a good experience. If you don't follow their guidelines, you may or may not have reliability issues. And the tricky thing is, you might sometimes have good reliability, but other times you might not have it. So if you just kind of throw something together and quickly test it, it might seem okay, but when your users are actually trying it, you know, your users are not going to be testing it in the same lab environment that you're testing your product. Your users have their AirPods in, and they also have 3 other Bluetooth products connected. They're wearing a Fitbit, and they're talking to your device. And in that scenario, you're kind of stressing the system a little bit more than just a really basic test that's happening in your lab. So if you follow their guidelines, you'll probably be okay, even if the user is kind of using this their system in a more stressful environment. So these are just things to be aware of. In Android, it's a little more difficult because, Google or in Android, there isn't really a clear documentation of what you should do and what you shouldn't do. But there are some best practices, especially one of the best practices I can tell you is you should enforce a newer version of Android to your users. Don't say that we're going to support every version of Android for the last 10 years. If you build your app and just design your app so that it only runs on the last, let's say the last 3 versions of Android, then you'll have a much better consistency with the behavior versus just trying to support all these older versions.
That is awesome stuff. Unfortunately, we gotta move to the next segment, but I think that Sandeep should definitely be on a podcast episode. What do you guys think?
Real quick, so I'll tell you all of
please.
that information can be downloaded for free on this document called the BLE Developers Checklist, blechecklist.com. Go and download this, and basically everything I covered is in there plus much more, and you can get that. And the last thing I have to throw this pitch is we are working on something at SwaraLink where we're basically taking all these best practices, encapsulating it into middleware, and instead of just having us consult and having us help you design all these things, another option is we're building a platform which gives you all of that. So reach out to me, reach out to us, and we can help you with all that. So yes, thank you for your time. Sorry if I've taken up more time than we have, but
that was all super interesting. Thank you so much, Sandeep. I love how you have very specific examples in there that makes it easy for some of us to understand that aren't as close to that. I have this meeting going till 1:15, but I know some of you might have to leave soon. For anyone who is an IoT, okay, I think I can share my screen. Yeah, anyone who is an IoT pro, I want to give you a little bit of spotlight too. This is not, I am a industrial designer and I work on connected products. That's not what this is. This isn't, I'm an optical engineer. I've worked on connected products. This is for people who actually are the people doing the connecting. You're an embedded device developer. You're actually doing the software integration. You're doing the Bluetooth stuff, that part. So if that is you, I think you can, if you want to raise your hand in the, where the hell is that? It's in, I don't even know where it is. You know what? Just unmute yourself and talk, but you'll have 30 seconds. And all you have to do is tell us your name, your company name, what you specialize in, and what we could do for you. So if you're looking for clients, you're looking for subcontractors, you're looking for specific vendors for a project or something, any sort of ask. So your name, your specialty, and what you need. Are there any IoT experts here who want some publicity?
Hi, can you hear me?
Great. Yes.
Yeah. So I'm. My name is Mohammed Afani, and I run a company called NovelBits. I'm not a contractor or a consultant. In fact, I provide learning resources. So for other engineers and contractors who are looking to learn specifically about Bluetooth Low Energy, that's where I come in. I provide I run an online membership site called the Bluetooth Developer Academy, where people can join and learn more about how to develop products using Bluetooth Low Energy.
That is really cool. Thank you for sharing that.
Yep.
Yeah, drop your links in the chat, and anyone else who hasn't, dropped your LinkedIn or whatever, your company, even if you're not an IoT pro, drop them in there. Let's connect with each other. Is there any other IoT pros in the room? Everyone here came to learn from these guys.
I've done a lot of IoT products, but actually today maybe I'll flip it around if you don't mind. I'm looking for somebody. I'm working with a company doing a repair equipment, and they want to connect it to the internet. So it's bigger. So it probably won't use Bluetooth. It's a much bigger, more expensive product. Anyways, I'm looking for engineers who might have some experience with putting some embedded Android in, or working with a company, a newish company called Esper.io, and bringing their fleet management IoT connection software up on hardware. And you see my Duppy, you can contact me at Duppy or Duppy.com.
Okay. Are there any IoT pros that didn't speak yet? Because if not, okay. So if you guys can stay for the next few minutes, we can do some breakout sessions. We're just like maybe 3 minutes. We got 20 people still here. 21. And then you can just, people always ask like, what should I talk about in a breakout session? But you're just asking the other person, what do you do? Where do you work? What do you need? So asking them enough questions about themselves to know if there's something that you can get from each other, how you can help each other out. And we'll just randomly stick you with some people. 17. We'll do 8 rooms. Maybe we'll do 7 because people are dropping. Everyone's leaving. Okay, we'll do 6 rooms.
I was told there'd be drinks.
It's the coffee. Did you get the?
Oh, we
the link
did.
for
Thank
the
you.
coffee?
We should have it
Okay.
together.
Okay, so you should get an invite. You can just join the room, and we'll end that in a couple minutes. Oh fuck! Sorry, that was still kind of a shit show, huh?
That was fast.
Yeah, so there's so many people who are leaving right at the end of the hour that I had to keep putting you into different rooms. So that, I'm sorry, that sucked. Did you guys get to connect at all?
We did. I just got connected with Sandeep, who I've known for a few years.
You matched the Bluetooth expert with the Bluetooth expert.
It wasn't me, it was the randomness. It was meant to be.
It was a little odd for me. I know another Sandeep, but he does a guard hat product up in Chicago, which is totally not.
Did anyone have a question for Sandeep? Since we got a couple of minutes left now. I'm sorry I wasn't able to fit that in because both of these talks were so great. It's going to be great to record those and publish them later.
Yeah. I just want to say, feel free to look me up on LinkedIn, or I'm still working on my videos for my Odd Engineer profile. So I still have that to do for you, Erin.
Oh, that's for you. These help you.
They do, yeah. New year, new business. It's picked up quite a bit, so that's nice.
Good,
Yeah, I
good.
sent you a request, Paul. I'm actually in Indianapolis, so not far from you.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get up there as much as I can. My family's in Cincinnati, so for me to go to Indy's like, whatever.
Yeah.
Let's have lunch. Okay.
Where are you, Duppy?
I'm in the Bay Area. I'm in Redwood City.
Oh,
The
and
picture,
Mohammed, where?
the picture behind me is when I lived in Washington. A lot greener up there.
Yeah, it doesn't look like the Bay Area.
Yeah. No, this is like that. So when I lived somewhere where you could afford a house, where you could buy a house.
Where in Washington? Because I'm in Seattle.
I was in Bellevue and Kirkland for 15 years.
East side. Yeah.
Excited.
Yeah.
And
That
Where
was
were you, Mohammed? Where are you?
I'm in Indianapolis.
Oh, that you just said that. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. I'm getting people confused. Okay.
Sandeep, I when it comes to Bluetooth, I don't know if you've had this experience recently, but the amount of projects where I've had clients because Bluetooth is the only thing you can connect phones to, trying to like shoehorn things onto Bluetooth that it is not really designed to do has been one of the like pains in my business for the past 2 years.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely experienced that where people come with some idea that is just, it's like, dude, that's not going to work. Like, as much as I'd love to help you, it's like Bluetooth isn't the right protocol. And actually, it's good to connect with people like you, Kyle, because we do get those projects. And I've dabbled with other protocols, and I've done a little bit of Wi-Fi and I've worked with a little bit of other stuff, but these days we're busy enough. So when there's projects that involve sub 1 gigahertz or LoRa or other protocols, I'm usually just referring them to other experts. And I always tell them like, hey, if there's a Bluetooth piece, I'd appreciate if you'd, use us, but we know these other experts who know these protocols better than I do. So, and also like on the Linux side, I mean, we deal with the low power microcontrollers, Nordic and Scilabs and ST Micro, those kinds of things. When a system is a Linux based system, I've done that stuff, but it's not really my expertise. So that's where, I'm sure I could be referring projects to you in the future for that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I was reminded of
I'm slowly trying to get out. I still do Nordic and ESP32 base stuff, but I generally am trying to get out of the, for some reason or another, bespoke microcontroller space. So like I had a client who, for reasons we needed like 7 different UARTs. And so there was one microcontroller that you could use, which is the Cypress PSOC 6 to do it. And that project was just painful. Oh my God. Because like we had like a beautiful working prototype based on the ESP32. And then it's like, oh, well, actually we need yet more UARTs. And I'm like, I can't make any more.
Kyle, you and Sandeep, you're never going to be able to work for a semiconductor company again. As much as you've been bad mouthing.
No, they need to rehire me because they got to get their shit together.
Just to let you know, Sandeep and I work together every time I go to at that semiconductor company, and Cypress was bought by Infineon. But yeah, thank you a lot for sharing both, Kyle, what you're doing, and also Mohammed. I'm on the 2nd generation of your Bluetooth. I'm one of those guys that will take the SDK like Sandeep and completely screw it up. And then I say, Sandeep, why can't I use 5.3? I know that, and then I'll shut up. But thank you for hosting this.
Yeah, Sandeep, you were spot on where semiconductor manufacturers have not made it easy to use their stuff. That's actually one of the reasons why, like I mentioned, like embedded Linux, like I'm like, why you should look at it. It's literally because well, lately with like the supply chain, you with an embedded Linux computer, you have an abstraction layer. So if chip X is out, you can, without having to completely re-engineer everything you've done for the past 18 months, move to a different platform.
It's amazing we got this far without mentioning supply chain, talking about IoT. That's incredible. Yeah. Basically that platform that I talked about at the end, which we're going to be launching that more publicly in sometime in the next 3 to 6 months. But it is cross-platform. So even though it runs on embedded devices, the idea is you can run software on one chip, and your Bluetooth code should be, I don't want to say it's a 2-minute drop-in of your code, but will be much easier to port versus if you write your code that runs on one Bluetooth stack, move to another Bluetooth stack, that's just practically rewriting your software. And we're trying to change that.
Yeah, that's been a huge pain point.
So both for Kyle and Sandeep, if you want to, write articles to promote these things, especially Sandeep with your new platform and everything, if you do value add articles on Odd Engineer, then I can turn that around and turn that into more content that I spam out to all the social media. So, if you ever do that, drop me a note and then I'll blast it.
And I will one of these days, I'll take you up on the podcast for sure. Maybe in a couple months or so.
Got things to do.
Got things to do, but yeah, I mean, this has been a great platform for us, and it's a good community that you're building. So we're happy to support you.
Before we jump off micros, I got a quick question. I got a new product that wants to do PoE, and I'm going to have some kind of RF backhaul, probably Bluetooth or something else. Are there any chips to avoid?
Right now, I'd say less than chips to avoid. I would say unless you need Zigbee, or Thread, you should use an ESP32 because the supply chain on that one is good. And like if you like STM Micro has some beautiful things that you can't buy right now. Same with Nordic and like all these other ones. So
Well, just to answer one of the questions, I've worked for all the semiconductor companies,
Yeah.
from TI to ST to all.
He really has.
Unfortunately, and I have the inside track on people. I can't say which semiconductor company, but one of my friends will say, Jonathan, don't use our, and he's the director, don't use ours because this company has some that I can get some supply chain. And then another one would say, oh, well, stay away from some Texas company. Stay away from them because they are focusing on this. And just to give you the inside track is that the most missed, and Sandeep, you can probably validate this, the most interesting thing that keeps the supply chain on electronic components is low-cost crystal oscillators. Because some guy named Elon, uses all of this stuff, and that is the biggest thing, Paul, that you have to take a look at. You can feel free to reach out to me. I can't tell you which ones, but I'll talk to the people, and everyone at Texas Instruments, we call it the Training Institute. So we all got trained there, and I have some people that said, oh, I want to use the Nordic so-and-so, and then my buddies in Florida, you never find out who he is, he'll say, no, John, we don't get that one, get this one. I said, really? I said, how do you know that? And one other thing, Paul, just to let you know, I know I don't want to hog the whole conversation, but a friend of mine was thinking about, I want to use RF, and he pointed me to an MSP 430. Sandeep, don't laugh. He said, look, we have those old technology. We have chips there. I said, but you don't work for TI anymore. He goes, no, I work for this company. I'm just telling you, Jonathan, to help you out. So if you need something, you can reach out to me. Sandeep knows me. I bug him once a week. He refuses to meet with me for some reason. I'm kidding.
Yeah.
I'm kidding.
Thank you very much for all that. Yeah.
You're quite welcome.
Yeah,
I'll give a quick note about ESP32. I know those are very popular chips and they're very powerful chips, but a common mistake I see made with those is if you're building a low power product,
correct,
and a Bluetooth product, that is not what you want. And one of the misconceptions about them is they support Wi-Fi. Low power Wi-Fi is a whole ballpark above low power Bluetooth Low Energy. So if you take an ESP32 and build a Bluetooth Low Energy product, your power consumption is going to be crap compared to something built within Nordic or TI or ST Micro or one of Cypress or any of these kind of chips that are designed for, pure Bluetooth Low Energy. If that's an issue for you, then sure, ESP32s have a great ecosystem. They're very popular, and supply seems to be better for those than other devices.
Yeah. So like the reason I say that, Sandeep, is actually, so I a project that I've been talking with Erin about for like years here. I was originally going to build it on the STM Micro Bluetooth Zigbee SOM, the 55 WB. And in the time that we spec'd it versus when we wanted to order the prototypes, they were sold out globally. So I had to swap over to the ESP. So, but you are completely right. Not the ESP32 is, you have to remember, it's powerful enough it can do audio. And the lowest you can run the clock, I think, is at like 80 megahertz, which is still 2 or 3 times what the Nordic runs at when it's at like its fastest speed. So it is, you're right, it is low power, but it's not like.
Well, it's really your sleep currents as well. Your sleep currents, I forget what they are, but some of the chips designed for BLE, those are like in the less than 2 microamp, some of the newer ones even less than 1 microamp, and you're not getting that with an ESP32.
No, it's, if you want to run it for years or something, that's not the chip for you. I don't know the project, Paul, that you're specifically working on.
Kyle, how close are you to launching your super secret project?
The boards are gonna be done. Well, not the first prototypes will be going out in where?
Oh, they're going out?
2023, but that's okay. We can wait.
No, I think it looks like the boards are going to ship in the next couple days, and then I'm hoping by the end of
March. Parts for them.
Sorry, end of April.
Oh wow!
Congratulations.
It'll be in hand. It'll be in some folks. It'll be in initial users' hands. Now these are they're like 10 prototypes. This isn't the first production run, but you know,
Yeah, that's
the
so
quote comes
exciting.
off once it's in customers' hands, right? So.
That's
yeah.
awesome.
Mhm.
When will you be able to talk about it? Are you gonna wait for
within-
test runs?
Once I finish assembling them, so I actually then submit the PPA so I can do all this stuff. You know.
Yeah, no. Awesome. Well, keep us posted.
Yeah.
'Cause I'm excited.
Yeah.
So thank you guys so much. This was like
Thank you.
awesome. I feel bad now that I limited you guys to 15 minutes because I can see that there's so much more we could have gotten out of you. But what you did share was really, really helpful. And I love the specifics and the examples that you gave that really made it something our brains can latch onto. And I will publish these. I will publish separate videos for both Kyle and Sandeep that are just you guys alone. And if you want the raw footage to play with on your own too, I can share that with you as well. But yeah. So I'm gonna close this out and thanks everybody for showing up and hanging out. And it was good to see you.
Thanks for meeting all
Thank
you
you.
guys.
Thanks,
Bye.
Erin.
And congratulations,
everyone.
Kyle. Congratulations, Kyle, on your prototypes.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, and Sandeep on his new platform.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Both of you guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.